Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. It is Monday, May 18th, also the 40th anniversary of the Gwangju Democratic Movement here in Korea. And coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Shin Se-min. Before we begin, these are the stories topping the hour. South Korea remembers a brutal day in history 40 years ago today. President Moon Jae-in wants to get to the bottom of who ordered a deadly military force against civilian pro-democracy protesters. An unprecedented World Health Assembly convenes online this Monday as the worst pandemic in modern history rages across the globe. Issues are likely to range from diplomatic tensions to finding a COVID-19 vaccine. Loan applications for small business owners affected by the outbreak start at 6 commercial banks across the nation. Also today, South Koreans applying for the emergency COVID-19 relief fund can start applying at bank windows. Our starting point this morning, South Korea commemorates its 40th anniversary of the pro-democracy movement in Gwangju on this Monday, May 18th, back in 1980, a day when the military regime in power at the time brutally suppressed the population in the southwestern city of Gwangju. On Sunday, President Moon Jae-in reiterated his call for the truth to be uncovered regarding who ordered the use of military force, including helicopter assault against the demonstrators.
그 규명의 목적은 아까 말씀드린 대로 그 책임자를 가려내서 꼭 법적인 처벌을 하자라는 차원이 아니라 그것이 그 진실의 토대 위에서 진정으로 화해하고 통합의 길로 나아가기 위한 그래서 꼭 필요한 그런 일이라고 믿습니다. 이번 국회의 그 진상조사위원회 활동에 많은 기대를 걸고 있고 정부도 적극적으로 뒷받침할 작정입니다.
President Moon also said if South Korea revises its constitution, as has been discussed, that it needs to reflect the historical value of the May 18th democracy movement to promote national unity. And commemorative event remembering this day 40 years ago will be held in Gwangju at 10 a.m. Korea time, and we will be bringing that to you here on Arirang TV. And staying with that story, to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the May 18th pro-democracy movement, the National Museum of Korean Contemporary History has also set up a special exhibition. And our Kim Do-yeon went to file this report.
In May of 1980, South Koreans nationwide, but especially in Gwangju City, spoke up against the expansion of martial law by the military government. However, instead of listening to the citizens, the government responded with violence. For several days, Gwangju endured a horrific assault from the Korean military, including well-trained special forces. In response, citizens armed themselves with weapons, which led to violent confrontations with the military. What started as a peaceful protest seeking democracy led to more than 160 people being killed and left thousands wounded. Today, this event is known to Koreans as one of the pillars of modern democracy.
It's not an exaggeration to say this is the root of the democratic movements in the 80s. The ones in the era thought they owed it to the people involved in this movement. This universal idea led to the June Democratic Movement in 1987, which led to a huge step forward in our democracy.
40 years after the May 18th pro-democratic movement, the National Museum of Korean Contemporary History has set up a special exhibition so visitors can remember the sacrifices Korean citizens made for democracy.
It's the largest exhibition of its kind to be seen in Seoul, and the first time many of the items on display have left Gwangju. A foreigner visitor tells us the exhibition is an example for the rest of the world.
Okay, so I studied in Hong Kong last semester, and at the moment the political movements are still going on. And so it's quite shocking that 40 years ago this also happened in Korea and that it's still going on today. But I think it is definitely like Korea's a better place now that it's more democratic.
What happened in Gwangju, a city far from the capital, changed the course of history, not just for the city, but for the nation. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Starting today, people in South Korea can apply for emergency COVID-19 relief funds, not just online, but also offline by physically going to their commercial banks. With relief loans for small businesses affected by the outbreak also beginning for the second time today, local banks are expected to be crowded all day. Our Choi Jung-yun reports.
Starting Monday, small businesses in South Korea struggling as a result of the COVID-19 outbreak can apply for a second round of low-interest relief loans if they didn't apply the first time. According to the Financial Services Commission, business owners can apply at 7 major banks including Kookmin, Shinhan, and Uri Bank. The total amount of loans provided will amount to $8.1 billion. The interest rate for this batch is around 3 to 4%, twice as high as the previous batch, which was 1.5%. However, many are still expected to apply as the rate is still low compared to the open market, and 1 million people will be eligible. Those who already received the first batch of loans or have overdue debt are excluded, and the rate will depend on the small business's credit rating. Offline applications for emergency COVID-19 relief funds also begin Monday. Households who did not apply online last week will be able to apply for the one-time payout at banks related to the debit card they're using. A 5-day rotation policy is in place to prevent overcrowding. Those with a 1 or 6 at the end of their birth year are eligible to apply on Monday. The payment will be given out in the form of card points 2 days after they apply. 6,500 branches of 14 banks are open nationwide to accept applications. As the application for the relief loans and funds are beginning at the same time, banks have raised concerns about possible COVID-19 infections and have asked visitors to all wear face masks and follow quarantine measures. Choi Jung-yun, Arirang News.
And this week, South Korea is also set to reopen its schools on Wednesday, May 20th, as announced last week, starting with high school seniors. Now, despite fears of another wave of COVID-19, officials believe they have the situation under control. Our Kim Hyo-sun with more.
South Korean quarantine authorities say the current measures of distancing in daily life will be maintained despite the latest cluster infection in Seoul's central district of Itaewon.
If current outbreak trends continue, our stance is that the cluster infection from Itaewon will be stabilized within the scope of control of our quarantine authorities.
With destination schools are set to reopen on Wednesday as announced last week, starting with high school seniors. While there are still concerns, a further postponement is deemed impossible, considering the nation's academic schedule.
We cannot let the 11 years of preparation by our students be in vain due to the COVID-19 outbreak.
The Education Ministry is considering alternatives across regions, such as dividing up classes and holding classes every other day or bi-weekly. For instance, sophomores will go to school during the first week, while freshmen will restart next week. Schools are also mandated to strictly abide by quarantine guidelines. Students or teachers whose body temperature is above 37.5 degrees Celsius have to stay home, while first responders will be dispatched to school immediately if anyone shows symptoms of COVID-19. Over the weekend, President Moon Jae-in stated that further infections linked to Itaewon seem to be under control thanks to the country's swift virus testing and contact tracing efforts. In a Facebook post, President Moon also noted the daily number of domestic transmissions dropped to the single-digit level for the second straight day on Sunday. He also thanked members of the public for faithfully complying with the principles of wearing face masks and sticking to distancing guidelines. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
From today, the South Korean military will begin screening all incoming transcripts for the coronavirus for the next 8 weeks. The head of the country's Centers for Disease Control, Chung Eun-kyung, said Sunday that the measures are aimed at preventing cluster infections and assessing the possible risk of community infection. There will be group tests instead of individual screenings due to the huge volume of testing that needs to be done. Around 6,300 tests will be conducted a week. And if any group tests positive, each sample will be tested individually to track down the draftee who has coronavirus. The World Health Organization's annual Oversight Convention will be held online starting this Monday as the world continues to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the major talking points during the meeting looks to be the diplomatic tensions between the world's two large superpowers. Our Lee Seung-jae has a full story.
Every year, the World Health Assembly brings together representatives from the WHO's 194 member states in Geneva to discuss a wide range of health topics. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has now infected over 4.7 million people and killed more than 300,000 worldwide, the meeting will be held via teleconference for the first time. While the meeting will focus mostly on the COVID-19 pandemic, there's another major issue at hand.
China could have prevented the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. China could have spared the world descent into global economic malaise. They had a choice, but instead China covered up the outbreak in Wuhan. Its National Health Commission ordered virus samples destroyed on January 3rd.
Number of member states, including the United States, Australia, Canada, France, and Germany, are set to question China's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and probe Beijing about where it actually originated from. Many have accused China of concealing the facts and numbers leading to the massive global outbreak. They are also set to grill WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus over allegations he cited with China during the early stages of the pandemic. Beijing has continuously denied the claims, saying it's too early to draw a conclusion on the source of the virus. The Chinese government insists it's an issue for scientists to resolve, not politicians. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says he expects the economy recovery in the U.S. to stretch deep into 2021. During an interview with CBS, he said the economy could steadily recover through the second half of the year, but a complete rebound will depend on a vaccine for COVID-19. He also added that the recovery would also depend on how Americans feel about their safety. Amid the sluggish economy, House Democrats passed a $3 trillion bill to address the economic impact caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the bill has been slammed by Republican leaders as hyper-partisan, and President Trump has vowed to veto it if it ever reached his desk. The enormous plan would cost more than the prior 4 coronavirus bills combined. A new study shows cats can also be infected by COVID-19 and transmit it to other cats. According to research by the University of Wisconsin's School of Veterinary Medicine, cats are capable of spreading the virus to each other without presenting any symptoms. Researchers say there is no evidence cats can spread the virus to humans. But this result suggests people with COVID-19 symptoms should avoid contact with not only humans, but also cats. And there have been several reports of COVID-19 infections in animals around the world so far.
Good morning. Have some rain gear on when you head out. Heavy rain will start to fall from as early as this afternoon from up north, and this band of rain will continue into tomorrow. And the further north you are, the heavier rain you'll see. The upper parts of Gangwon-do and Gyeonggi-do province are in fact under a preliminary heavy rain advisory, while the capital and Gangwon-do province could see 30 to 100 millimeters of heavy rainfall. And there will be strong gusts along the eastern coastline, so please be careful. Temperature-wise, afternoon highs will be a couple degrees higher today for Seoul, topping out at 27 degrees. But Daegu and Gwangju will notice breezier afternoon highs at 24 and 25 degrees respectively. Rain will bring cooler air to the country, so Seoul will notice lows nearly 10 degrees lower tomorrow afternoon, just at 17 degrees. And temperature fluctuations will persist this week. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for news around the world.
And that is it for this edition of Arirang News, but we'll be back soon at 10 a.m. Korea time, a little over 15 minutes from now, for our special coverage of May 18th Gwangju Democratic Movement. So do join us again then. Thanks for watching and see you soon.